I welcome everyone to our webinar today on sandwich carers. I'm joined by Clara, one of our amazing care experts, to walk you through some of the more like fine, detailed, and granular points. But yes, sandwich caring is what we're talking about today, and you might think that's quite a niche topic, and I think once upon a time it probably was, but it's more prevalent now than ever, sandwich caring. And if you didn't know what sandwich caring was, it's when you look after a child dependency and an elderly dependency at the same time, simultaneously. And yes, like I said, it's becoming more and more prevalent in society today. And there's many reasons for that I'll get into a bit later. But essentially, this webinar today is to raise awareness of what sandwich caring is, the challenges behind it, and just what kind of support you can look for. And it can be a very light touch type of support. It can be signposting, or it can be like a more like comprehensive support. And that's exactly why we're here. We're here to guide you through that. And in case you didn't know, we're Seniorcare. We are your organization's digital platform to help you better understand, find, and fund care for your elderly loved ones, which is a wonderful mission, and we love doing it. And putting on webinars like this, even something as sort of more unknown like sandwich caring, is it's really nice. It's nice to be able to shine a light on that and sort of draw a bit more attention to it because there's a lot of people struggling with it currently. And I'm glad it's a really popular webinar. There's lots of you here, and I really appreciate you all being here. It's that's really good to see. So topics for the session: what care looks like when you're looking after elderly and child dependency simultaneously. How you can plan ahead, which is really important all the time when it comes to care. The different kinds of care and support you can look into, and what our role in all that is, and how we can sort of help. And that's how we'll sort of finish the webinar. We will have time for questions as always. You can ask questions throughout. I believe the chat or Q&A function should be working. So please, if you do have any questions at any point, do type it in and ask away. But we will have time at the end to cross any of those questions, of course. But yeah, thank you all for being here. And we'll kick off. And I think a lot of you probably have seen this slide before, but I think it's really important to just readdress, where care is in the landscape of this country. So 1 in 5 employees are balancing their jobs with caring responsibilities. And I think what's something that doesn't tell you is that, maybe those caregiving responsibilities are both childcare and elder care. So when you combine all those different caregiving responsibilities and work, it's a massive juggling act. And that, of course, can lead to absenteeism, which, of course, we want to prevent. We want to keep people in work. It can obviously lead to mental health conditions and negative impacts. 84% of employees say that elderly dependencies negatively affect their performance at work, and they feel more stressed at work. That's even more exacerbated when you think about childcare as well. Diversity and inclusion, obviously a big one when it comes to childcare, but for elder care, women are 400% more likely to reduce their hours or, even leave their job altogether, which again, we want to prevent as much as possible. And I think we can prevent it with the right support at the right time and the right signposting and things like that. And care costs, no matter how much you look at it, it's always eye-watering and really difficult. So I think that's just the landscape we're currently dealing with in the UK. It's tough out there. So that's why we want to help as much as possible. And yes, sandwich carrying is more prevalent now because, we're living in an aging population where people are living longer, and people are also having kids a bit later as well, especially if you're living in a city. I think the ratio is that people are having kids a lot later, which means that the chances of sandwich carrying happening is rising all the time. So if you look around where we are right now, 2025, no, we're in 2026. I completely forget what year it is. If you're looking at this sort of area, though, then you can see just like how the probability of yourself like having a sandwich care sort of situation and having to look after maybe a little one at home, but also an elderly dependency as well. It's becoming far more prevalent, and it's really difficult to deal with. And I hope that this calendar asset really sort of paints a picture. So you might have a little one that you're taking to nursery. That may seem like a very standard practice when you have a child's dependency. But then you combine that with the sort of the elderly dependency responsibilities, and it might be picking up prescriptions, it might be hospital appointments, it might even be more like hands-on personal care responsibilities like meal preparation and helping eat and clothing and bathing and things like that. When you combine all this together in a week, it becomes very, very cluttered. And it's important to note that we haven't included any work in this at all. So you have all these different responsibilities during the week plus work. It's just insane to think, how does anyone have the bandwidth to be able to cope with that? So I hope this sort of lays the foundation of what sandwich caring looks like a bit and how it can be quite challenging. And of course, now Clara is going to go into much more detail into what care looks like in that circumstance. So, Clara, let us know why people might not assume they're sandwich carers, or how they can even notice that might be a necessary impact on their lives.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. My name's Clara. I'm one of the care experts at Seniorcare by Lottie. I'm here on the other side of the phone to help you explore care solutions, discuss funding, and just general day-to-day support for your loved ones. On the next few slides, we'll take a look at kind of what it means to be a carer, the challenges that you might face, and some tips that we have to overcome these challenges. So, as your loved one's needs begin to change, people often become carers without realizing or kind of consciously identifying in that way. It can be important to kind of take a moment and have a think whether this could be you. You'd technically be considered a carer if you are helping your loved one with things like personal care, so they're washing and dressing, any kind of meal prep or grocery support, if you're managing their medication, making sure that they have everything they need, that they're taking it at the right time, or maybe it's offering mobility support day to day. If you are helping with any of those things, like I said, you are a carer and it's important to recognize this. It's a really significant role to take on, and doing so without realizing means that you might not kind of look for support that's available. And there's lots out there. So taking a moment to acknowledge that and find support is really important. It can also help you to be kinder to yourself. Understanding that you're taking on such an important role will help you to ensure that you take breaks, and that way you can continue caring for your loved one in the best way possible. People typically reach out to us because of specific triggers in their lives. So that might be noticing mobility changes in a loved one if they're having a bit more difficulty getting around the home, or perhaps even driving, things like that. They might reach out for help with preventative planning. So we always encourage people to get in touch as early as possible. Um, Rather than kind of looking for care in an emergency, we can explore options in your nearby area so you have a list that's ready to go if support is needed at any point in the future. You might also reach out if you're going through kind of a significant life transition, for example, looking advice about selling a property to fund care, or anything like that. And then also, extremely common is people supporting a loved one from a distance. And yeah, we appreciate that this can be really challenging, knowing that your loved one is far away, you can't be there all the time to support them, and making sure that they have, what they need in place to look after them.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, Clara, in the sense that you can just begin to see like how broad that spectrum is of like, you might
Mhm.
be it might be as simple as, helping a loved one with the groceries. And then suddenly it can delve far more into like the financial like consequences of selling a
Mm.
home and things like that. And that's just how broad it is. And any way you sit on that scale, you're more than likely, providing caregiving responsibility. So I think that just addresses it really well. And what about the other challenges that people might be facing?
Yeah, so if you are a sandwich carer specifically as well, and you're juggling looking after a child and an elderly loved one, you might be experiencing a range of different challenges. For example, you're taking on a real mental load, so constantly holding on to two different sets of needs in mind, as well as your own kind of life admin, work responsibilities, all of those things. You might experience carer guilt as well. So often people report that they feel like they're not doing enough. And they're not there for their children enough, or there's one kind of side of that equation that they feel that they're not fully supporting or have the bandwidth or time to attend to. There's also time pressure as well. So a similar point to previously, just feeling like you can fit it all into one day whilst working. And then, like we said, long distance caring. So figuring out logistics from afar. And we're highlighting these here to say it's completely normal if you're experiencing these emotions or struggling with these things. You can only do so much. So looking for support that's available and being realistic about the care that you can provide whilst looking after your own well-being as well is really important.
Thanks, Clara. And what about some tips for sandwich carers?
Yeah, so here are a few tips that we have for sandwich carers that you might want to kind of think about in advance for specifically school holidays. So planning childcare in advance, looking into holiday activity schemes. A lot of these are free, and having those, yeah, that's scheduled ahead of time can help you if you are caring for an elderly loved one as well. Um, and then also being honest with your employer about additional pressures. It's yeah Hopefully by being on this webinar you work for a company that is aware about caring and juggling that with work responsibilities, and they're open to kind of transparent and honest conversations about the support that you're providing. And yeah, being honest with your employer just really helps them to um, make considerations and just understand what you're going through as well. And then on that day-to-day balance side, you could do things like create a shared calendar, for example, with school events, parents' appointments, so that you can just try and keep on top of everything as best as possible. Set regular check-ins with your parents, and they don't have to be super formal, but just kind of well-being checks, making sure that they're doing okay. And then any small things that can make the support that you're offering a little bit easier. So grocery prescriptions, having, yeah, like set reminders, just things which hopefully take some of the mental load away from yourself. And then finally, accepting that some days will be trickier than others. It's not going to be perfect all of the time. But if you are a sandwich carrier, you are doing so much. And yeah, it's not always going to be perfect.
No, and I think it all comes back to sort of just like thinking about it a bit more, how you can save yourself a bit of trouble in the future by planning ahead. And obviously, we've got a few more comprehensive things that you can do. Like we'll chat a bit about respite care and more
Hmm.
formal functions of care. But I think it's really important just to think about that day to day, week to week, and how you can save
Hmm.
yourself a bit of time and look after yourself because it's you that's under a lot of strain at the end of the day. And if you're under a lot of strain, then how can you take care of all these people simultaneously? It's really difficult.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
We've just had a question in and saying some people in the wider team would like to watch this back but not able to join today. Don't worry, I neglected to mention at the start that this is being
Mhm.
recorded. So once this is all finished, we'll be able to send a recording to everyone that needs it and wants it, and they can watch it back in their own time. So don't worry, that will be available. Um, cool. Moving on to the next slide and the Carers Leave Act.
Yeah, it's worth being aware of the Carers Leave Act. This gives all UK employees the legal right of up to 1 week's unpaid leave per year to provide or arrange care for a loved one. It's worth noting as well, it doesn't need to be taken all at once. So you can take this kind of day at a time or a few days at a time. And it might be to support a loved one to an appointment, to care for an unwell parent or child, or to help in an emergency if needed. And your company may also have their own specific carers leave policy. So it's worth looking into this and seeing what support's available in your workplace.
Yeah, we know organizations that, they really champion the Carers Leave Act in the sense that they add on extras, like they make it a paid leave. Some people give extra leave.
Mhm.
So it's well worth checking in just to see what your employer can provide as extra. But yeah, it's well worth utilizing this because this has been a real sort of like safety net for a lot of people going through some tough times that they can actually use this. But is it enough? I don't know. We're getting there. That's the main thing. Planning ahead. Okay, so like I said at the start, and like we've kind of alluded to throughout, planning ahead is really, really important. Thinking about the future in any sense, because you never really know what's going to happen, and that's almost one of the scariest things about care and like caring for a loved one is that things can happen by surprise, and you can't always plan ahead. But thinking about it definitely helps, and having conversations definitely help. So. I've written really large writing on the left that says lasting power of attorney. We always bang on about how important we think this is, just because if you don't organize a lasting power of attorney, and by the way, a lasting power of attorney, for anyone that doesn't know, is you can make someone lasting power of attorney. And if that person loses mental capacity, then their lasting power of attorney can make decisions on their behalf to the best and for the best support of them. And I think it's a really important thing to think about now, because if you do it in retrospect when it's too late, that can be a really difficult process. It can be really hard in retrospect to organize a loved one's, finances or well-being and support from there on. So this is something we just like say, don't wait for it. Think about lasting power of attorney now. And you can have a conversation with us if you want to talk to us about like setting that up or like guidance into how to go about that. It's really, really important. So yeah, do reach out to us. And yeah, I can't emphasize enough how important that is. But there's lots of other ways you can plan ahead. It's not just sort of legal documentation. Explore care options. Start to think about care options now. Like it may be so far from you and your loved one's minds about care. But before I worked here, I never talked to my parents about care at all. That just never came up because it's one of those sort of awkward and hard to navigate conversations. But ever since I've worked here, I'm really upfront with both my parents about care now. And actually, it's just made a lot of those really difficult conversations we initially had a lot easier because we've already talked about it. And sometimes it's just about having those really honest, tough conversations earlier on, sooner rather than later, so that they're more calm and it's more considered, and that your loved one's involved in the conversation as well. Because it's never nice to just sort of have to take it away from them and it's not their decision anymore and you're deciding for them what's best for them. That's never a good position to sort of have to be in. So yeah, those are really difficult conversations to have, obviously, but it's really important to think about it. And of course, understand what's available. Care is not linear at all. Care comes in so many different forms, and there's so many light touches, like I've mentioned previously, of care. It could be home adaptations to help your loved one live safely at home, or it could be, something way more comprehensive, like an actual care home environment. But just see what's available. Have a chat with us. That's a huge part of what we do is exploring those different care options and thinking about the future. And just so that you kind of have an idea in your head, like, this is a nice plan. This is what I imagine doing. And yeah, it could be care home, it could be home care, it could be a whole bunch of different options available to you. And then we'll make sure you're not as overwhelmed, hopefully. And protect yourself, obviously. Having all these future planning thoughts and having all these conversations will help prevent burnout in some form. It's almost mentally preparing yourself and protecting yourself, and that is just super important, because if you don't think too much about the future and suddenly all these things climatically happen at once, you suddenly can't take care of anyone, you can't do your job, and that's just such a difficult position to be in. And that's why we hear so many people calling us and just burnt out. They're on their final embers, and we don't want that. We want people to be able to, it should be about the next chapter, not the last chapter. This is what this is all about, and it's about planning ahead. So yeah, that's something I recommend massively, protecting yourself, and hopefully that gives you some insight. And of course, like I said, we're here to chat through any of that. You won't chat with me because I'm not an expert, but you'll chat to amazing people like Clara and her team, and across like a whole spectrum of different things. Maybe it's just a sense check. You want to understand what a lasting power of attorney might mean for you and your family, and that's just the understanding sort of side. There's so much jargon involved. in care. But maybe it's exploring care options, and like we can help find those for you. And when it comes to funding, well, that's an entirely different webinar about funding. We've done webinars on funding before, and that it's a really popular webinar because there's so much to it. There's so many different ways in which you can save money through benefits and apply for different assessments and things like that. But also just like understanding what's available to you is super, super important. So don't hesitate to just get in contact, because we're here to sort of help you every step of that journey and future planning especially. It doesn't have to be happening now. It can be something in the future. And yeah, it would be wrong of me to not mention the emotional support that Clara and her team provide. It's really inspirational, the sort of things they talk about, and the level-headedness of the care expert team. So yeah, definitely utilize them because they're amazing, and they're always here to help. But I am biased, obviously. That goes without saying. I am a biased man. Um,
No.
but now you can talk us through the different kinds of care available for people.
Nice, thanks, Robin. Yeah, we've spoken about kind of practical tips that you can take on day to day to support your caring responsibilities. But as I said previously, sometimes you can't do it all, and it is important to look for support available if needed. And there's a range of different types of care that's available. Um, Here at Senior Care by Lottie, we partner with a range of home care and care home providers all across England, Wales, and Scotland. And we can support you, as Robin said, in exploring the right care solution for your loved one. And there's different kinds of care available, and what's needed will depend on their needs and their specific situation. So you might want to look into home care support, and that's having a carer visit your loved one in their home. And it could be hourly care or sometimes referred to as domiciliary care. And that's stopping in a few hours at a time. It could be once a day, it could be multiple times a day, or even once a week. And they might help with personal care, ensuring people take medication at the right time, meal preparation, light household chores. They can offer a whole variety of support. There also might be live-in care at home. So if your loved one needs more kind of round-the-clock supervision, a carer would live with your loved one. They'd have breaks throughout the day, but you know that there's always somebody there to supervise them. And then also overnight care. So there's both overnight waking and sleeping care. The main difference being for overnight sleeping, the carer shouldn't be woken more than twice. If they are, it's considered overnight waking care. And that's when people do need kind of supervision, sorry, throughout the whole night. And if care isn't needed, the person can also support with admin, like household chores or other things that are needed throughout that time. And then there's care homes as well. So care homes typically offer four different main kinds of care. So that's residential dementia, nursing, and nursing dementia. And again, if you're unsure what kind of care your loved one needs, do give us a call and we can discuss their care requirements and which community they'd be best supported within. And both home care and care home environments, you can have short-term care. So respite, and that's the final one here. And this is essentially short-term care. You might choose to go for respite care if you're going on holiday and you want to make sure that your loved one's being well supported, or simply to give yourself a break from your caring responsibilities. And that can be, yeah, somebody coming into the home or a loved one staying in a care home for a couple of weeks. And there's also lots of pros to this as well. If you're have an idea that a care home might be a future long-term care solution for a loved one, a respite or short stay within a care home can be a really good kind of trial period, get them to like familiarize themselves with a care home environment, and hopefully have a really enjoyable stay and feel comfortable if they were to live there in the future.
And I think that comes up quite a lot when we talk about sandwich carers, doesn't it? Because people with like a young family, that have like a
Mm,
multi-generational household, sometimes they want to have a holiday with their kids, and that's
mhm,
where respite care probably comes most into the fore, I guess, where people are
mhm.
like, I just want to have that summer holiday with the kids, go away for a couple of weeks, and that's something that respite care, whether it's at home, like Clara said, or in a more, functional care home environment,
Hmm.
that really comes into play. So that's just like a few, and it really depends on the scenario of, what your sort of your caregiving responsibilities and, your sandwich care type and things like that. So
Mm.
yeah, that
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's so important, even if it's not like full-time care, just having that peace of mind, even if it's somebody checking in twice throughout the week, like
yeah,
your loved one's still really independent, but you know that they've had two people, like formal carers, come in twice a week just to make sure that they're doing okay. So it doesn't always have to be, yeah, like round the clock or 24/7.
yeah, absolutely. And how care can support your loved one?
Yeah, so carers can support your loved one in a variety of ways. They provide kind of practical support morning to evening. So, like we've said, help with personal care, and they're trained to do that with dignity and respect. Medication support. So, obviously, it's super important to ensure that your loved one's taking their medication, right doses, right times. Meal preparation and assistance, ensuring that they're well fed, and they'll always take into account preferences and different like dietary requirements or anything that's important to your loved one. Um, there's also activities and well-being. So sometimes as well, care can simply be for companionship support. So someone might stop by to have a nice chat with your loved one, to maybe play some games with them, do things that they enjoy. And then they also might, if your loved one's living with a particular diagnosis, for example, dementia, they might be able to play games with them that they enjoy, and that helps to kind of stimulate them cognitively, and different things like that. And then finally, health and independence. I always think that a great carer allows your loved one to kind of live independently and maintain as much independence as possible. And I know that can be a worry. Like as soon as you accept care, they kind of lose control or autonomy over what their day looks like. And that's definitely not the case. I kind of it's nice to think of them just being there as a support rather than like taking control. So if they're helping, for example, with their nutrition and fluid tracking, that means that your loved one's feeling good and is able to look after themselves in all of the other ways, or that they can. So um, I just think that's really important, and it helps them to build confidence as well. If they're feeling good day to day, hopefully just makes them happier as well.
Love that. Thanks, Clara.
Thank
And
you.
what this means.
Yeah, so if you do look into formal care support, there's lots of benefits. This means that you don't have to provide all of the care yourself. You get a well-deserved break with peace of mind, knowing that they're being well looked after. Um, in that same vein, you're then protecting your own well-being. Your loved one receives consistent and skilled care, and they handle some of the tasks and anything that you want to keep doing yourself. Like I said as previously as well, they don't have to do everything. If you want to continue offering a certain kind of support to your loved one that's important and is a part of the way that you relate to them as a carer, then you can continue doing that. And that's all something that you can discuss specifically with the care provider.
Yeah, and I think it's nice to like know that this is just lightening the sort of like the amount of work and the capacity that you're having to take on, because yeah, if you are caring for multi generations, yeah, that's hard enough looking just after children, but then you throw
Mm,
other dependencies into the mix, obviously that's really difficult as well. So any way in which you can lighten the load will probably maintain your mental health a bit better and probably make you a better caregiver in
yeah,
return, wouldn't it?
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what are some common home care concerns? Because I know that, and you don't have to go through all of them, obviously,
Mhm.
but like what are some like common home care concerns that people might have? Because I think these are like really important to just shout about, because these are a lot of what people ask us and talk to us about,
Mhm.
and it's nice to just be able to reassure people.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, I speak with people every day on the phone who are looking for care for their elderly loved ones. So we often talk through these concerns, and I completely understand where people are coming from when they express them, especially if care feels quite a foreign concept to you and your loved one as well. A lot of people worry about just like, what if my loved one or my mum doesn't get on with the carer? What if they don't gel well? And there's a few different things I would say to this. When it comes to home care support specifically, they'll always have to do an assessment to ensure that they can support your loved one in their home environment. And it's always free of charge, no obligation. So I usually recommend, if you have the time and you'd like to arrange this assessment with more than one provider. Whilst they're assessing your loved one to ensure that they can care for them, it's also a really good opportunity for your loved one to get a feel for the carer, for the agency, how they work. We have some guides as well with helpful questions to ask when they do come to do that assessment, and which we can send along to you if you give us a call. And it's just, yeah, helpful to get a sense check and make sure that your loved one feels comfortable. And then in addition to that, they'll always try to make a thoughtful effort to match your loved one with a carer based on perhaps personality type or preferences or interests. So they'll hopefully find a good match. If for any reason you're not happy with the carer that's provided, then that's absolutely something that you can feed back to the agency. There's also ways to find individual carers as well if you really want that hiring control over who's coming in to support your loved one. And then the personalised care plans that they create as well will help them to ensure that they're offering kind of person centred care in a way that your loved one is comfortable with. And then to go on to another point, some people say, how do I convince my mum to get home care in the first place? And this can be a tricky conversation, and I guess there's no one right way to approach this. Um, but my main point of advice is to perhaps introduce it gradually, rather than if someone suddenly needs a lot of care, having someone come into their home 3 times a day, it might feel a little bit unsettling. And sometimes that needs to happen, and that is okay. But if you have the opportunity to plan in advance and say, oh, I've noticed that my loved one is just struggling a little bit with some of their household chores, you could get somebody in twice a week. They slowly build up a relationship with that person. They get comfortable with someone coming around to their home, and then it's increased if needed to support as care needs might increase.
Yeah, and I think you're right. That is probably the trickiest question you get asked, I imagine, is how
Hmm.
how do I, I don't think anyone envisages themselves being in care. Let's be honest. No one like ever
Yeah.
pictures themselves. So it's really difficult to convince someone or like try to negotiate with someone that really doesn't
Hmm.
want it. Like that must be a really, really difficult conversation to have, I imagine. And we do get asked about it quite a lot. So if you are having trouble with those sort of family dynamics and navigating those conversations, do talk to Clara and her team because even
Yeah.
those are really hard to answer depending on who it is.
Mhm.
That's something that does get that's a concern that does come up quite a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And we always say as well, we can talk to anybody in the family. So often I will speak with someone who's looking for care for perhaps their mum, and they'll say, can you give my dad a call, or can my dad call you just to like
Mm.
talk through what this might look like? And then we'll have a conversation as well. So the service extends to kind of family friends that would like to chat or have a conversation, and that can help as well with kind of just changing that perspective a little bit.
Yeah, Clara's a mediator, if anything. Family mediator. Um, and what about carers community groups and different kinds of support that people can find? Because it's not always like we talked about before about comprehensive care support like home care, care home, but sometimes it's about a community group as well, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. Sometimes being a carer can feel quite isolating. But if we kind of think back to the graph that Robin shared at the beginning of the presentation, so many people are like increasingly becoming sandwich carers, so looking after um, elderly loved ones and child dependents. So whilst you can feel like you're alone, you're really not. And then accessing some of the local support groups that are available can be really helpful, even if it's just to chat with other people in similar situations, see how they've overcome certain challenges, maybe even just have a little bit of a rant or express any of the like difficulties that you're facing, it's nice not to feel alone. And we have a Lottie support group that we can share with you. And there's plenty of other really helpful organisations out there. Care UK, Age UK, and there's forums as well for questions. So yeah, I'd really encourage you to explore those as they can be a really helpful tool. And finally, as well, there's things like carers cafes. And again, if you'd like to call, we can explore ones local to you. And I guess, yeah, maybe even one step further than being on one of those online communities is chatting with people in person, sharing your difficulties, and then hopefully, yeah, building up relationships with those people and supporting each other.
Yeah, you're definitely not alone in the situation. The data says that, but then also we just hear back from so many employees in different organizations, part of different carers groups that, they're growing all the time. And I'm not sure if like, the fact I think that's only a good thing that people are talking about it more because there was a time where people would never talk about it and too proud or
Mhm.
too guilty to talk about it. So yeah, definitely reach out if you want some more signposting to different communities you can join, whether online or in person. Oh, by the way, I've seen that you guys have been writing questions. Thank you so much for writing questions. I really appreciate it. I'm not ignoring that at all. We've just been in the mix, in the mire of the webinar, but we will come to that at the end. We'll just talk briefly about what we do, our role at Senior Care, and how we can help, and how you can access Senior Care, and then we'll tick off all your questions as they come. But thank you so much for writing all those questions. We really appreciate it. So you can chat with us. You can chat with us on the phone. Our phone number's on the screen right now. So if you wanted to give us a call, don't hesitate to do so. It doesn't matter how big or how small the query is. Give us a call. We're happy to chat through anything. Your organization has paid for the service, and it doesn't have to be anything specific. It can be absolutely anything. It can be a sense check, like I mentioned previously, or it could be something way more comprehensive in a care journey. But yeah, give us a call. You can also access the portal, and Clara or another one of our amazing care experts will happily chat with you and sort of liaise with you on that sort of care journey. And it might be anything to do with on the right. It might be about those family dynamics and being that sort of mediator type thing, which is always really difficult. But it might be about home care specifically, care home, retirement living, planning ahead, lasting power of attorney, and more like sort of legalities and things like that. Or it's care funding, which is always proving to be way more prevalent, and people have lots of questions about. And I'm sure we'll be doing a webinar on care funding again soon. We usually do it quite often nowadays. So, yeah,
Mhm.
do just give us a call and get in contact. We'd love to chat with you. And obviously, we don't like to toot our own horn all the time, but it is so nice getting trust pilots back from people that have used the service, from like that have used the senior care service, and they're just really, really satisfied with, the kind of the care and attention they get, and that's down to Clara and her team, obviously. But um, yeah, we want to just make sure that everyone has that opportunity to have someone that they can talk to. Sometimes it's just someone to talk to, isn't it? That you just want to, sometimes you think you're going mad and you just want to talk to someone about all these different care situations. But yeah, hopefully that paints a picture. Like, I know how proud Clara and the rest of the team are with their Trustpilot score. Um,
Mhm.
4.9 is pretty high. Will it ever be five?
Maybe one day. That's what we're striving for.
It seems
Always
a bit
striving for
nitpicky of
five.
me to say that. It's a bit nitpicky.
Yeah.
Could it be
Point
five?
one.
No. Yeah, but we're really proud of that, and we endeavour to just help people as much as possible. And of course, it's not just one conversation; it could be multiple conversations.
Yeah.
Some care journeys last a really long time, and that's absolutely fine. Like that's part of the care journey itself. Life isn't that simple. Um, so yeah, that this is the final page of the webinar. If you want to get in contact, you can obviously call us. But if you want to request a call back at your convenience, scan the top left QR code. And if you enjoyed this webinar, or if you've used the service before, or you you just want to give us any feedback, please use the second QR code and give us feedback because we're learning all the time. We want to make the service as good as it possibly can be, and we can only do that with feedback from you guys. So yeah, we appreciate anyone to just scan either or. And of course, you can always call the number. But yeah, we'll have a look at questions now because I don't want to neglect those.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, of course.
and Clara, where did we get to? I think we had someone we had Katrina at the top saying lasting power of attorney takes such a long time to be processed, but such a peace of mind. Couldn't agree more. I think that's yeah, it's hands down one of the things that will just like be a weight lifted off your mind. So yeah, I
100%.
encourage anyone to sort of think about lasting power of attorney ahead of time for sure. And what else have we got? This is really helpful. Thank you. Have you had scenarios whereby the person who needs care is not willing to accept that they need care, therefore adding a new challenge whereby you have to provide care and unable to get support, e.g., conditions like psychosis? Has that come up before, Clara? Is that something that happens?
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that we come across, especially for people living with conditions like psychosis or other mental health conditions. There's a range of different support that they can access. Sometimes it's a case of a signposting. Sometimes, if they're in a particular environment, for example, either a care home or a hospital, and they're really not willing to accept care that's provided, people will put dolls in place, so deprivation of liberty safeguard, just to ensure that they're safe and well looked after if they really are refusing care. So that's kind of the main. Usually they'd be in an environment anyway where that would be put in place. Perhaps there will be lasting power of attorney if they do no longer have capacity. Therefore, you're allowed to make those decisions about their health and welfare on their behalf. But this definitely is something that we do come across, and we would encourage you to give us a call in this instance.
Thanks, Clara. That's really helpful. Another question from Anonymous. Is it the case that once the level of care required is above a certain level, such as dementia nursing care, that the care home can be publicly funded regardless of personal savings? I wasn't aware of this until someone mentioned it recently, and I always thought funding was means tested rather than the level of care required.
Yeah, there is a type of funding which is NHS continuing healthcare, so NHS CHC, which I imagine is what's being referred to here. It's not available for everyone. It's available for people living with kind of long-term, ongoing, and complex health conditions, and sometimes that will be people that require dementia nursing care. Um, and exactly that is when the NHS pay for the entirety of somebody's care fees, and that can be at home or in a care home. And if you do give us a call, we can talk you through the application process, how about to go about applying, and whether it might be suitable for your loved one.
Yeah, and again, I think there's so many different. The fact that you might have not heard of it isn't that surprising because some of these things are so hidden behind walls of bureaucracy. It's really hard to know. So do give us a call if you want to explore what care funding might look like. It might not always be
Mhm.
applicable, but it's always worth asking the question because you could be, yeah, this could be completely funded, and it's not means tested. But yeah, definitely worth giving us a call on that. Um, Next question. The administration that comes with the care system can be overwhelming. Can you recommend a service, if it exists, that could support with this, such as advice and guidance on completing forms PIP, adult social care? I know the Citizens Advice Bureau can support with this, but their service has been reduced, which makes it difficult to find the support needed.
Yeah, absolutely. There are organisations that exist that can support with these things. We obviously can offer advice and help you to identify, for example, talking about personal independence payment, like whether your loved one would be eligible, how to go about applying. But if you want to go that one step further and have support actually filling out the forms, there is an organisation called Kinley, and they do exactly that. Again, we can signpost you in their direction. They also have great reviews, and they help people to fill out forms for personal independence payments, attendance allowance, council tax reductions, and things like that.
Brilliant. Yeah, and also just talk to us because we were saying Kinley like just randomly, and don't worry if you're like missing that name or not getting enough information. Just do
Yeah.
inquire with us, and then we can give you all those details. Request a call back on the QR code, give us a call, whatever. There are there are possibilities to help you with this because some of the forms are just insane, aren't they? I can't remember how much someone told me once what carer's allowance was, and it was something like
Yeah.
30 odd pages or something.
Yeah, attendance allowance is about 30 odd
And it's like,
pages, which is, I mean, the pro is that you can apply online now and you never, like for a while, it was always paper forms. And we do have information which hopefully makes all of the application processes a little bit easier for you. But appreciate when there's so much going on, it can feel really quite overwhelming as well.
nice. Thanks, Clara. Um, Will said they are very patient with me ranting. I hope that's us being patient. I hope that's a positive. Clara and her team are very patient. They're amazing, really friendly, compassionate people. So yeah, I hope that's about us. They're very patient with me as well, ranting, but I rant about different things. Um, uh, and then what's next? Has your organization approached the government on financial costs and options of elderly care, especially care homes? A lot of care homes provide substandard care, yet the costs are eye-watering. Um, we are constantly in discussion with the UK government. It's a really tricky situation because there's only so much that an organization like ours can do. We can keep having conversations with those in charge of social care, but it's so dated as a system now. They've talked about raising the financial threshold to £80,000 rather than 23,000 pounds for years and years, and they still haven't done it. They've gone back on that, and it's a really difficult um, line to tread, and often there's just inertia. We can't really get anywhere. But what we can do and what we focus on is trying to be really practical and talk about care funding that you can access. We're well aware how eye-watering some care home fees are and how care fees can be. But if we can provide some financial support and point you in the right direction where you can get these benefits that could save you hundreds of pounds a week, or potentially if it's um, continuing healthcare where that might pay for the entirety of your care. Again, that's not always set in stone, but we are always endeavored to try and help you reduce the amount of financial burden on your shoulders because it's really, really difficult. And most of the time you struggle to think about how you pay for it. I think there's another statistic when we did some user research where we found that a lot of care seekers were paying out of their own pocket for care, not their loved one's pocket, but their own
Mm.
personal savings. And so it is a really tricky financial situation that you're going to find yourself in. But I think that's why it's important that you have a chat with us because you can wait. I think we could possibly wait years and years and years for the government to change things, but they might not necessarily overnight. So that's exactly why we exist to help as much as we possibly can right now. And I know that's probably not an answer you'd probably want, and but that's as much as we can possibly do right now, and we'll continue having conversations with anyone that wants to listen in the government and things like that. But yeah, I appreciate your question. I hope that gives some sort of respite, kind of thing. Um, Will said the Carers Cafe at BMJ is patient. I'm sure you are too. Yeah, BMJ are a wonderful organization. Their Carers Cafe is superb. And we work with lots of organizations setting up carers cafes and like community care groups and things like that. But they really lead the way when it comes to that, and I know they're incredibly patient. So I'm glad you said that. Everyone's patient, I think. Uh, Cool. Um, I hope that's provided. If you have got any other questions, don't hesitate to ask. But if you want to, if it's a more personal question, then please, request a call back. And also, if you'd enjoyed this session and you've enjoyed using Senior Care before, please scan the other QR code and let us know your feedback. We'd really appreciate that. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with everyone today, and I hope people found it useful. Carers, like sandwich carers, sounds quite niche, And it may seem like a niche thing, but I think it's when you put it in the greater spectrum of where we are as a society and a culture, it starts to make more sense. And there is support out there, from something very light touch to something more comprehensive, like I mentioned before. But there is support, and we want to ensure that we're always here to listen. You're partnered with Senior Care, so please utilize us as much as possible. And yeah, thanks, Steph. I appreciate that. Thank you for a great session. Yeah, we love doing it. So thank you so much. Again, this has all been recorded, so we will send it to anyone that has missed the session. Thank you so much for everyone that attended today. It's really, really cool. We really appreciate it. And yeah, contact us. But anything else to say, Clara, before we done?
No, that's everything. Thanks everyone so much for joining, and do feel free to reach out if there's anything at all we can help with.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a lovely day. And yeah, we'll speak to you
Thank you.
soon.